Out front now, the former Pentagon military official who ran the covert government program up until this last November, Luis Elizondo. Luis, thank you so much for your time tonight. I mean, first, tell us what the purpose of the program was and why it was so secretive.
Sure. The purpose of the program, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, was really designed to do just that. From a national security perspective, identify those things that we see, whether we see them electro-optically, we see them with radar, we see them as eyewitness reports, through a myriad of different ways and avenues that we receive the information, and try to ascertain and determine if that information is a potential threat to national security.
This is me, Max Moszkowicz. I'm a filmmaker and a journalist from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. I'm on my way to meet Luis Elizondo. And I'm meeting Lou in San Marino. It's great to meet you, Mr. Elizondo.
Max, it is a true honor and privilege. Thank you very much. What an incredible place, huh?
It's amazing, and you know, the first question which comes to my mind is, why San Marino?
Well, you know, that's a great question. San Marino has the distinction of being one of the oldest republics in the world. You know, in America, we look at our own country and say, wow, we've been around for so long. And then, of course, you look at around this architecture and these walls, and they've stood for centuries and centuries and centuries. And, you know, I think San Marino is a good place, good as place as any. It's a small little area in the middle of Italy. It's been its own country for, you know, since the medieval times. And you know, there's a lot of interest here with some of our Italian counterparts. You know, I think San Marino represents an opportunity where it's kind of like a Switzerland,
yeah,
where there is no real one country agenda. You know, the one thing I think is important in this topic, you know, look, I'm American, but this is not an American discussion. This is a global discussion.
Definitely.
Right? And you coming from the Netherlands and me from the United States, we have that in common, that this is a topic that involves everybody.
Yeah.
And so San Marino represents potentially a place where everybody can come together and have a discussion about this topic, free of any type of national agenda. You know?
So yeah, we are surrounded by history here in San Marino. It's hundreds and hundreds of years of history. But what's so amazing to me is I feel we're in a historical country and making history by what we are now discussing right here. So to me, there's a lot of symbolism. What do you think? Are we making history right now?
Well, I think we're living through history. I think, you know, I think every human being is part of making history. History is an amalgamation. It's a grand total of all the inputs, right?
Yeah.
And this is a conversation where everybody has a vote. Everybody has value. This is a conversation that impacts everybody, as I've said before, differently and yet equally.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, when you look at these walls, you have to ask yourself, you know, how many discussions have taken place in this very courtyard about something historical? Yeah, someone's flying a drone.
There's a drone, yeah, but it's UAP.
Yeah, talk about history, right? So
yeah.
There's, you know, here's a courtyard where to some degree history was made. History was certainly discussed over and over and over again. You know, I think we're at a point as a species where we need to stop looking at boundaries and artificial lines on a map and realize we're really all pretty connected.
Yes.
You know, I'm not sure I buy the notion of this is a US conversation, or this is a Russia conversation, or this is a European conversation. It's a global conversation.
Yeah, so let's elaborate on that a little bit, because we are here with a very international ensemble. So what is going to be discussed here? Because you said we're going to try to collaborate with multiple officials from multiple countries.
Yeah.
So what's already being is there already an agreement?
Well, Max, we have some of the best scientific minds collected here. And some of them are here to talk about UAP, some are not. But I think my hope is that I will be able to provide a presentation that will be very informative, talk about where we've come in the last 3 years, what we are doing now, and where we should be taking this conversation in the future. And it's going to be collaborative. This is not going to be a discussion world according to Luis Elizondo. On the contrary, my hope is simply to facilitate a discussion and be able to provide information that we are doing behind the scenes to help this conversation continue. But by no means am I trying to provide a prescription how we should have this conversation.
I do think you are trying to find ways to give public access to information to information about the UAP phenomenon, but you cannot because it's mostly classified. So now the involvement of science and scientists is going to be essential, because that is what I think going to be true disclosure to the general public.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, it is, well, you can look around. It's ultimately science that is going to bring humanity forward, in my opinion. And I think that having the scientific and academic communities involved in a conversation like this is imperative. But at the same time, I got to tell you, Max, you look around here and you see people from the media and people like yourself. And I think that's as important as having the scientific minds, because they're going to have the discussion, but who's going to have the discussion with the people? Well, it's not the scientists. It's you. It's the media.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a inherent responsibility that you have, and everybody up there that's carrying a camera and a microphone or a pen pad, and that is to always speak the truth, whatever that truth may be, right? And have that conversation between the people and the citizens and the scientific community, because the scientific community is really good about having a conversation amongst scientists.
Right.
But they're not always good about having that conversation amongst people.
Yeah,
right?
Even among each other, you know, it's there's a lot of ego involved, a lot of people who cannot let go of their axiom, right, as scientists, and there's only a handful who are actually willing to engage in the new territory, like Mr. Avilo.
That's right.
So what I'm interested in here, and I'm going to ask the difficult questions. There's a car. Now you are sitting on a lot of information you cannot disclose, of course. Correct. You have a contract with your government. You serve. Thank you for your service, by the way. I'm not American, but again, it's very important. But are you looking for ways to share in some way the knowledge you are sitting on, or trying to find a way to share this to the scientific community and see, or give them maybe pointers on where to look at?
Every day I'm trying to find opportunities for collaboration. You're right, I will not violate my non-disclosure agreement with my government.
No doubt, yeah.
But I don't think I have to. I think if you look at the last 3 years, collectively we've achieved a lot without having to violate any contracts or any oaths. I'm not sure breaking an oath is helpful necessarily, because I can't in good conscience tell you I'm going to tell you the truth and then go ahead and break a promise over here to have a conversation, right? Because if I'm willing to break my oath over there, then I'm willing to break my oath over here. So it doesn't work that way. I can't violate their trust to gain your trust. Doesn't work.
Yeah, it would harm your character and your reputation, of course.
I'm going to pause for 1 second. I just have to reset.
Yeah, I can't. You know, I can't violate my oath and break a promise to keep a promise with somebody else, right? So either you keep a promise or you don't. I think we're at a point where nobody has to break a promise. I think we're at a point where we can have a conversation. We don't have to discuss classified information. Quite frankly, there's a lot that's not classified. And now that the scientific community is getting involved and governments are getting involved, that makes my job a whole lot easier. You know, ultimately, it's not going to be me that's going to carry this conversation forward. To be completely honest with you, it's you. It's people in the media. It's people that want to have this conversation in an open and transparent way. That's the beauty of the media, right? That's the beauty of having you and others like you part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Because this is part of history. Whether it's a good part of history or a bad part of history, make no mistake, it's part of history.
Yeah, I think it's our job, you know, to investigate and find out whatever this is. You give a clear message. Guys, we are dealing with something. It's been going on for decades. Well, since 2017, you know, there's a lot of attention, and you took a big risk by you know, coming out with that, with the people who are helping out, Mr. Reed, Mr. Mellon, etc. Now, that must have had a big impact on your life. But to me, it's like the least I can do is cover what you are risking. So I think even in media, you know, it is very stigmatic if you cover this. In my country, I'm basically the only one who's really talking to people like you or Mr. Harry Reid, and journalists in my country are very hesitant because it's still something that could really harm your career. But I think the topic is so important, and even if something comes out that might not be as you know, yeah, how do we, the only thing I think is important, we just need to know what the hell it is.
Right. If you were to ask me what's the one thing I want to achieve out of this conversation, I want to be back here every year having this conversation with people like you. That's what I want to do. So, you know, I think, for example, you mentioned these walls in this beautiful city of San Marino. You know, one of the oldest, as I was told, one of the oldest republics in the world, right?
True.
It has seen war, it has seen pestilence, it has seen famine, it has seen good times, it has seen bad times, and yet these walls still stand. And very much to that same degree, you know, my hope is that what we can achieve here is something enduring.
Yeah.
Something that is proverbially like these walls. Maybe we're just putting the first layer of rocks on the ground. Maybe we're just now today laying the foundation for one day for something magnificent to stand upon.
Yeah.
That's my hope. That's what I want to achieve here. And you know, the last time I came to Italy, I was blown away by the level of interest and professional, dedicated support by the CUN and other organizations like that, and even the Italian government to some degree. And coming back here, you know, looking back on just the last 3 years, and I think collectively what we've all been able to achieve, has really been monumental. And my hope when I present here, one of my presentations is to go over just how far we've come in the last 3 years, and where I think we should be hopefully heading towards in the future. By no means am I going to be driving the train on that. That's not my intent. It's just simply to say, hey, look, this is what we've done together, and together, look what we can achieve if we decide to do it.
Yes.
Right? And so that's kind of my hope.
Now, the last couple of months, there's a slow drip of information about whatever the phenomenon is. I've noticed there's much more hinting towards extraterrestrial. Now, I know this is a question you probably don't want to answer or have to answer, but are we facing a revelation anytime soon that this is not earthly?
That's a great question, Max. Look, I've said this before. The likelihood of this being, well, first of all, it's not US tech. We know that, we've already admitted it, it's not. We admitted it to ourselves, we admitted it to the world. We're past that in the conversation. Every day that goes by, it is increasingly likely that this is not some sort of foreign technology. So the question is, at that point, then what is it, right?
Yeah.
We can speculate, but I think we need more data. All I have said for the record, and I still maintain that, is that it's not our technology, and it's becoming exceedingly unlikely that it's some sort of foreign technology. So the question is, and whose is it? Or what is it, right? And where is it from?
Yes.
These are the questions that we're asking here today. This is why we're in San Marino.
Yeah.
It's exactly for that reason. We need to start asking those hard questions. If it's not from here, then we've got a lot of soul searching to do.
Yeah, I do think this is why it's so important, because if it were to be true and it is not from here, not from Earth, then that means life as we know it is going to be different.
Yeah, and I don't think in a bad way, necessarily. I think it's very much like here in San Marino. Imagine living your whole life inside a wall and one day realizing that there's a whole world outside the wall. What is it like the very first day that you walk outside? You've lived your entire life inside the beautiful walls, right? And all of a sudden you realize most of the world, most of the universe isn't in here. It's out there.
Yeah.
Right?
And do you believe that? Is it out there?
Well, I think we only have to do is look up and realize it is out there. 99.99% of our universe is beyond our direct observation or even comprehension. That's a fact.
Yeah.
So you look at the scale of the universe, 94 billion light years across, and we're this infinitesimally small speck in space-time. We call it human being. Now, as profound as that is, we sit right in the middle of the scale of the universe. There is in space, comparatively speaking, in scale, there's just as much universe outside of us as there is inside of us. What do I mean by that? Well, if you look at a single atom, which is 1 × 10 to the -26 in size, right? That is roughly the type of scale we're talking about to the grandeur of the universe. And so by that definition alone, most of the universe is beyond our comprehension and is out there. That's a fact.
Definitely. So you once said to me, there's a drone that is very...
Yeah, I should have taken my head off.
Yeah,
we're going to scoot over here a little bit more.
Yeah.
I've been whacked by one of those before.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So whose is it?
Up there.
Oh, the kid?
No, not the kid, but there's someone by the kid.
Are you being spied?
I'm sure. It wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, so to elaborate on that a little bit, in the first interview I had with you, you said I work in this way, just the facts, ma'am.
Right.
Now, if we approach whatever is going on that way, just the facts, ma'am, let's say we're in court, you, of course, have a lot of access to classified information, but if we, in theory, just use just the facts, ma'am, if you take the facts, how big is the percentage that this is extraterrestrial we are facing?
Therein lies the problem when we say extraterrestrial, because most people can't even agree on a definition of what that means, okay? When we say extraterrestrial, people think little green men from Mars, right?
Yeah.
When in reality, there's a lot more to the universe. There's extraterrestrial, there's extra-dimensional, there's all sorts of possibilities that could exist. In fact, every time we try to define what life is, life always defies our definition.
Right.
Okay, there was a time where we thought life, all life was contained to synthetic processes, photosynthesis, right?
Right.
It derives its energy from the sun and ultimately, gets trickled down to larger life forms. When in reality, we now understand there are life forms that survive off of chemosynthesis.
Yes.
Completely different from photosynthesis, right? Every time we define life as, let's say, having DNA, well, now you have things like a virus that has RNA, right? But it replicates and does everything that a living thing does, but it has no DNA.
Yeah.
So we have to be very careful when we say something is extraterrestrial. What if it turns out that we ourselves are quote unquote extraterrestrial? Maybe what created us in the early days of life and amino acids were brought in from a comet.
Yeah, maybe a hybrid. We're hybrids.
I mean, maybe or it's as natural. Life in the universe is as natural as we are.
Yeah.
Maybe it's bountiful. Maybe it's everywhere. I mean, if you want to know if there's life in the universe, Just look at this tiny little rock we call Earth. It's everywhere. It's miles under the Arctic ice. It's in thousands of feet up in the highest mountains, in our atmosphere. It's in our body. There's life forms inside life forms. How crazy is that? Life can exist inside other life.
Yes.
Right? And so, is it possible there's something called extraterrestrial life? Well, I think statistically there's a probably really good chance, yes, but we have to think even beyond that, because we're looking at this question from current paradigms, and I'm not sure we can.
No.
Our current paradigm is if it's not from here, it must be from up there. Okay, but maybe there's other alternatives too. What if life developed on this planet just as naturally as you and I did, but it developed from a completely different tree, right? And what we are seeing is just as natural as you and me. We're just now at the point where technologically we can interact with it. It's always been here, possibly.
Right.
What if it's from under the oceans? What if it's from outer space? What if, there's a lot of what ifs.
Yeah.
And so we have to be very careful not to be tempted to prematurely jump to that conclusion, say, oh, if it's not here, it's extraterrestrial. Okay, well, that's one option, could be, but there's also other options.
Sure. And what I'm wondering about, there's a lot of motive from some of your, let's say, counterparts within the military ranks or the political ranks, who are very much determined, not to give the public access to whatever is going on. Now, that must mean there's a lot of there's a lot of things that are probably not they're too sensitive to be shared with the general public. Now, of course, this is what is making me asking all these questions. You are elaborating on whatever this could be, but what is the motive?
If I may, Max,
yeah.
You talk about government and secrecy. Ultimately, we're talking about a conversation about truth.
Right.
Whatever that truth is. I don't think you can have true freedom without truth. They are inseparable. You can't have a free society and have a free society without the truth.
Yeah.
As we say in my career field, the truth shall set you free. It is imperative. The two go hand in hand. And if you don't provide the truth to the people, then you will never have a free society.
Yes, and so you took a big risk personally to pursue the truth publicly. Has there been any point you were actually in danger because of that?
Sure, absolutely.
For your life?
Well, certainly for my livelihood and my security clearance, that continues to be a challenge. There are elements in there that are not very happy with me. I have made decisions in my professional career that have certainly jeopardized my life, but that's not unique to me. There's an entire Army and services and Department of Defense, and not just in my country, in your country and everywhere else, where people have put their lives in jeopardy all the time.
Yeah.
Police officers, nurses, doctors, teachers, believe it or not. That's nothing new, and I'm prepared to accept that. If the cost of having an honest conversation is potentially endangering me, well, that's an easy decision. I've made that decision my entire career. That doesn't scare me a bit.
No.
That's just routine for me.
Yeah.
I think my fear is complacency.
Right.
People don't care.
Well,
that for me is the greatest threat. It's not someone, threatening my life. I don't care about that,
Well, we were talking about covering this. I've noticed a couple of things by covering this in my country, but also internationally. For example, I can see who is looking at my LinkedIn page. And for the last 5 months, there's a top two. That's the Dutch Ministry of Defense and NATO. Now.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. And I've been covering a lot about the Soesterberg case from 1979. 12 Dutch military men were witness to a UAP, UFO, whatever we call it. And I think they're not amused with that I'm covering that.
No, they're probably not.
Yeah.
Just like my government wasn't amused by me having the conversation publicly. But I will tell you, a true patriot doesn't do things that are convenient. They do things that are right.
Yeah.
And sometimes to be a true patriot, you have to do things that don't necessarily appear to be very patriotic. But that's the sign of a true patriot. You're willing to do what's necessary for the benefit of your people. And I think that's where we are with this conversation. I will tell you from my perspective, things are getting a lot easier for me in my country for sure. By no means have we won the proverbial war on this topic at all, but the tide is changing. We have our legislators involved. We have seniors in our executive department involved. We have our media involved. We have average citizens now having the conversation. They're not laughing and snickering, you know. So I think
this is a very interesting development, because yes, they are taking it more seriously, because you know, especially in the last couple of, I guess, 6 months, media is not ridiculizing it totally. You know, there's much more journalists who are now joining the team, who are taking it more seriously. So how do you feel about that development?
Well, let me ask you the same question. Why are you here? What brought you here? What made you leave your country, drive for 2 days, cross several countries to be here in San Marino today? Why?
Well, to meet you, and because I have an instinctive feeling that history is being made right now. And to quote Professor Jordan Peterson, you said some people are very skeptical, but in pursuit of the truth, you have to step on some toes and be prepared to insult some people. That's how we do it. And if I look at my country, I'm the only one who had been talking to the key figures of disclosure. But now, of course, you were approached by the Dutch equivalent of BBC News. They actually had to go through me because they had nobody ever talked to you, you know. So that was amazing to me, because now it's picking up, and the bigger Dutch newspapers started covering it. Still just copy pasting from American media, but you know, this was big to me. So why am I doing this? It's instinctive, and I don't think you're deceptive. I think that's the main motive for me to find out whatever the hell this is.
Well, I'll leave you with one thing. We have scientists here today, and of course you hear, UFOs, UAPs is a crazy hypothesis. But let me ask you this. Doesn't everything in science, every major advancement in science and understanding start with one crazy hypothesis that turns out to be right?
Yes, Galileo.
That's right.
Yeah.
Among the many others, right?
Yeah.
They come up with this crazy hypothesis. You're crazy, you're wasting time, you're not even a scientist. Turns out, wait a minute, it's a paradigm changing moment, right?
Yeah.
And so these are moments in time where humanity is forced to grow, and either it's like a crab molting its skin. Either you grow out of your shell, or you stay trapped in the one you're in.
Yes.
And if you stay trapped, you choose to stay trapped in the one you're in, you're never going to grow. You're going to remain that size forever. So we have a choice, and that is to break out of the shell that we're in and grow as a species in our understanding, or stay in the shell we're in. Yeah,
I do think this is the resistance to this disclosure from humankind, because human beings have a reflex, right? And the reflex is whatever I don't know is threatening or scary, or it messes with my axioms, you know, whatever my life was like. Now, I don't want it to
Max,
change.
You're absolutely right. Let me give you a case in point. 2 months ago, I was told I had cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, now it looks like I don't, but you know what my very first reaction was when the doctor came in and said, we need to talk, you have a mass on your kidney? It was, I don't believe it. Instinctually, I told myself, no way.
Denial.
Right? Denial.
Yeah.
And then came, what does this mean to me? And how do I reconcile this with everything else that I know to be true? Well, I feel fine. Well, I look okay. This can't be true, right? No, I'm not. Right? So that is a natural human reaction. I just went through that very same thing a couple months ago.
Yeah, but you went through the process of accepting death.
Well, I think when it comes to the UAP topic, you know, we're just now having this conversation. We're just now being told something that is changing our paradigm.
Yep.
And so our initial gut reaction is, oh, no way, I can't believe it, right? it's going to take time.
Yeah, so I think the symbolism here is very powerful because death is also, I don't know what happens after.
Great point.
Yeah.
That's right.
So disclosure,
uncertainty, right?
Yes.
The big unknown.
Am I going to heaven or
right.
am I just worm food?
Right. And if, by the way, it turns out that there are things called UAPs and UFOs, what does that mean for me?
Yeah.
What does that mean for the way I was raised and everything I was taught, right? Is all this no longer relevant, or is it maybe even more precious, right?
Are we afraid of maybe, in a way, a dying species, or moving forward to being evolved species?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we? You answer me.
Well, man, I don't know. I think I'm probably more like one of these stones in this big wall here, you know? There's a lot of stones here that created the apartment up there. You know, I think we're probably just one of these stones on our way up, hopefully, and not on our way down.
Yeah.
Right? Hopefully the stairs are going up and not down. Yeah.
Unknown. We're going to the unknown. But you know what? There's a very special kind of human who dares to pioneer. There's only maybe 1% who really dares to face uncertainty, ergo death, you know,
right.
by stepping into the unknown. You know, I think you are one of those people, and it's very brave.
I appreciate it. You know, I don't do good with compliments.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of guy, you know. I always...
no, but you know, that there's just a very select... there's a few men who are programmed that way, who are willing to take that risk, and I think you're one of them.
Well, I appreciate it, Max, but so are you. I mean, you can't as a journalist and be like the only guy in your country having this conversation and say that I'm the only one taking a risk.
Because you are willing to take that risk, I'm willing to drive down from Amsterdam to do my part.
Well, let's go get a cup of coffee, shall we?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Let's go down and we'll meet some of our colleagues down there and hopefully continue this chat.
Yeah.
You know what it is? It's not death, it's a metamorphosis.
Yes.
Right? It is a caterpillar becoming a butterfly.
Yes.
And during that time it's in the cocoon, there's lots of uncertainty. But in order to build up, you must first break down.
Yep.
And that is the way Mother Nature is.
And also, now I found out you're Jewish. You know, Jews don't really... No, Jews don't claim there is an afterlife because we don't know.
Right.
So we don't disqualify it. But one thing is for certain in Judaism, and that is that energy never goes.
That's right.
Yeah, it never dies.
That's right.
So whatever...
It's, by the way, proven by science, right? Cannot be created nor destroyed.
Exactly.
So...
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, man, this is something else, man. It's, I think, you know, the transformative process of mankind is inevitable. Either you transform or you really do die. You perish, right? Life is not static. You know, even these walls, how many trees has it seen being born and decaying, right? Life all around it. Yet even these walls are slowly changing and transforming.
Yeah.
Walls are not in the same shape that they were when they were first put in. Right?
I can see the life on these walls.
Right.
Actually.
Absolutely.
It's a fungus.
Right. And so the world is not static. That's one thing we know. The universe is always proving to us that every time we think we have an understanding of who she is, she changes, and we oh wow I had no idea, right?
Right.
And so yeah, I think it's time we have the conversation as a species, wherever that conversation takes us.
Right.
Right. I don't know where it's going to lead. I really don't. Really, you have this great big master plan? No, I don't.
No.
You know, I don't know how to tell you. Surprise. I mean, I don't know where this path leads. I just know that the path there leads to nowhere. It's a brick wall.
Right.
Because we are now faced with the fact that there are things that aren't ours. We don't know how they work. We don't know where they're from. We don't know who's behind the wheel. We don't know their intentions, whatever it is, right? We don't know where it's from. So at least let's ask the question, because by us not asking the question doesn't change the calculus at all.
Yeah, dare to ask the question.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, might as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, man.